Hello everybody, it's Josie here, and happy International Women's Day! So I'm doing this video today because it is International Women's Day, and I'm wearing my lovely Woman Power t-shirt, and I thought I would talk about, so obviously being a woman and a feminist, International Women's Day is quite a big celebration for me, and I wanted to talk about some of the books and literature that I'm looking at and media that I'm consuming, just generally that I consume, but also over this period, what I'm currently reading that has kind of a bit of a feminist, kind of empowering women slant, and just talk about some of my favourite books that are in that vein, that, you know, you might want to check out, both non-fiction, fiction, different types of genres, and then also talk about some of my other media. So you can see behind me, I've got my lovely Birds of Prey poster up there. I love Birds of Prey. It is, I think, currently still in cinemas or has just finished its run. And it is basically, it's a DC Comics. You know, if you don't know what Birds of Prey is, it's DC Comics. It follows primarily Harley Quinn over there and her band of lovely Birds of Prey. And it is an extremely female-centric movie. The cast is predominantly female. There's queer ladies in it, and there's women of colour, kind of, you have different representations of colour and race and age and demographic, and I think it's really, really cool, and these are all really empowered, strong women, and they come together to fight an evil, and I love it, and it is a brilliant movie. I highly, highly recommend it. I think it is a lot of fun to watch, but also has a really great message. And kind of in that vein, in terms of media that I consume, visual media, I think another one that and I haven't seen it yet, I'm holding out, and I think I'm going to watch it in the next few weeks, hopefully when I get back from my trip, is the new Batwoman. So they've turned Batwoman into a TV series featuring Ruby Rose, who I adore. But again, it is, you know, it is a female superhero, a woman, you know, saving Gotham. And not only that, but Ruby Rose is herself queer, and the character of Batwoman is also queer, which is, I think, a big step forward as well in the kind of the superhero universe, if you like that. Another series that's amazing is Winona Earp. So that is kind of a gunslinging, kick-ass, badass female main character, which is really cool. I think we're getting a lot of media that is kind of focused on strong women. Other films that I've adored is, I really loved Ocean's 8. I love the concept of taking that kind of Ocean's 11 heist movie and having it focus on women. It was fantastic. I love that. I love anything that has kind of strong, powerful female characters. And also, I think just putting women in a slightly different light as well, and not always as, you know, the girlfriend, the wife, not necessarily always in the nurturing role, because I don't think that's all women's experience. So I love that, and it's just some of the things that I've been watching, some of the things that I've been loving, really. Moving on to books, because this is a book channel. So at the moment, I'm consuming a few things. So an audiobook, I am currently listening to this. It is Fight Like a Girl by Clementine Ford. Really, really good. She discusses a lot of topics in terms of abuse and, you know, the patriarchy, and how in her own personal, so this is basically a memoir of her own personal life, but it's also a very empowering read, and I'm finding it really, really good. There are obviously some trigger warnings, some tough things with sexual assault, abortion. She's currently talking about the piece that I'm in the book about abortion rights, and you know, how a lot of those decisions are made by men in power when pregnancy is something that affects a woman and a woman's body. So really, really good. I'm, like I said, I'm listening to the audiobook, but I am going to purchase a copy of the book so I can have it and reread it and just support Clementine as well, because I really like it. Then, in terms of what else I'm reading at the moment, is this book over here. It is called The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Newitz. And I'll be honest, I picked this up, I can't remember, somebody recommended it as a book that you might like if you liked How to Win the Time War, because it is basically about time travel, and it has queer characters, like lesbian queer characters in it, and I was like, oh, I'm sold, I'll buy it. And I am loving it. I am on page 270, so pretty far into the book now. Absolutely love it. You can see I've tabbed quite a lot of it. It is, and it is that. It is about time travel. So we're going like between the 1990s, which I love, the early 90s. It's like one of the opening chapters is like a punk concert in the 1990s, through to 2022 and further on. People are moving back and forth through timelines. We're in 1883, I think, at the moment. And the central theme is that you've got a group of women, time travelers, and then there's a group of men time travelers, and they're kind of fighting against each other in the sense that the male time travelers want to reverse women's rights. So, for example, they want to make abortion illegal. They're handing out these flyers saying women shouldn't go to college, they shouldn't be educated. And they're making what they call edits in the timeline to try and further their cause. And then you have a group of women, which this book focuses on, the women where they're going back and they're trying to make their own edits and undo some of the things that have been done in the past in order to ensure a just and fair future for women. And it is really, really interesting. So you've got obviously that aspect of it as well, but then you've got just a really cool storyline, and I'm loving the characters and going back and forth across the different timelines, and I'm finding this really, really good. This is definitely on track to be a 5-star read unless something really untoward happens in the last 100 pages. I'm absolutely loving this book, and I highly, highly recommend if any of those topics appeal to you. And if you liked How to Win the Time War, I recommend this. This one I think is much more narrative focused. So if you found that one a little bit disconcerting and what is going on, this one has a proper quote unquote narrative, and I think you'll enjoy this. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's amazing. Then the other books, so you can see I've got bookmarks in all of these because I'm currently kind of reading them all concurrently when I'm in different moods. And this one is Nasty Women. And this is a collection of essays and accounts of what it is to be a woman in the 21st century. And it's, who's it edited by? Oh, it doesn't even say. It's a collection of essays. And again, I'm loving this. I'm not too far into this one, so I've read a few of the essays, already tabbed some up. This covers a really broad spectrum. So the very first essay is about a woman talking about being called a derogatory name for a Latinx woman. You've got a very heartfelt essay on birth control and how a woman had taken birth control injections when she was younger in order to kind of control and be in charge of her reproductive rights, and how that particular brand has now been shown to cause osteoporosis, and she's left with osteoporosis in her 30s, and how that's affecting her. You've got a wonderful essay written from the point of view of a Black female who is talking about, not only is it hard for women to be seen, but when you're a woman of color, and it is just, it's a really great collection of really short essays, and just covers such a wide range of topics and experiences for women, and I'm really, really enjoying that. Then the next one I've got here is kind of, not really in a sort of, but in a way, this is non-fiction as well, and this is musings and essays, and it's called Witches, Sluts and Feminists, and it's by Kristen Soleil. Soleil, I might not be saying that quite right. And this is really interesting. So this is the intersectionality between kind of witchcraft and Wicca and paganism, feminism, and then the idea of sexuality and reclaiming ownership of sexuality. There's a song that I adore by Christina Aguilera and Little Kim called Can't Hold Us Down. And it's one of my boxing songs on my boxing playlist. So whenever I go to the gym and box, that's one of the songs that comes on. And I find it's a very empowering anthem for women. But there is a great line in that song where she goes, you're basically paraphrasing a little bit, but she basically says, a man can sleep with as many women as he wants and do whatever he wants sexually, and that's okay, but if a woman does it, she gets called a whore. And I think it's that kind of concept on reclaiming your own sexuality as a woman. And I think I've read the beginning of this book, which in the introduction, and she's talking about, she did this online movement called Slutist, and just like reclaiming the word slut and what that means. So I think this is shaping up to be a really, really interesting read. And I'll probably do another video once I've done these all and kind of talk about them in a bit more in depth, but I think this is going to be really interesting as well. And then I'm going to talk about some of the books that I've already read and some of the recommendations that I have. So the first one, again, about intersectionality when it comes to feminism. I think this is such a great read. Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. I just recently read this, and it's that experience of a woman of color and how does she experience feminism and being surrounded by white women and their idea of feminism. And I think for anybody that is not a woman of color, this is incredibly educational, incredibly interesting read in a very, I'd say, easily digestible format, because it is a novel and it's funny as heck, and it's a great story, and it's really important. I think this is one that I think every woman should read. It's really interesting. Highly recommend. Then the next one, again, this is a recent read, and it's Girls Can't Hit by T.S. Easton, and this is really fun. So this is a very easily digestible YA novel about a girl who basically takes up boxing, but there's a whole narrative that runs through this in terms of her friend. So Fleur is she is a feminist, but she's not very vocal about it, but her friend really is. And I think they're 16 at the time, and they're in class and they're having these discussions, and her friend is really good at kind of going to marches and really arguing the point and really being vocal for women's rights. And then Fleur takes up boxing, and initially her friend is sort of going, no, why are you doing this? This is a very masculine thing. This is a male sport. Don't support that. But I think throughout the book, she kind of comes to realize that, again, it's an empowerment. It's claiming your own power. It's claiming your own strength. And this idea that, women can be both physically, mentally, strong. Again, around body image, I think it's an interesting discussion. I'm going to talk a bit more about it because this month I'm really dedicating to kind of strong women and my love of martial arts and weightlifting, and the idea that as a woman, you can't be physically strong, that's crazy. And the aesthetic of, a woman with muscles and all of those things. And I think that's really interesting, and kind of seeing boxing as masculine and a sport for the patriarchy, whereas that's not the case. So really fascinating. But again, really easily digestible, funny. You can see loads of tabs, fun book. Actually, speaking of boxing and books, Nicola Adams, who was the first female boxer to win a gold medal at the Olympics, and this is one of my icons and heroes. That is a great read as well. I had that on audiobook. Her autobiography is called Believe. Really good, if you're interested in that. Then another book that I really love is Kissing the Witch by Emma Donoghue. This one is taking fairy tales, and it's taking them from the female character's perspective, and also sometimes the female characters that have been overlooked, so not the princess and not the, sort of the fringe characters. And what I love about this is that each chapter tells the story of one of the women, and then it ends with that character talking to another character, and the character going, well, let me tell you my story. And I love that. And then you go into her story. Really good. Just hugely recommend this book. Always recommend it. Then another one that I am going to read, so I haven't started this one, so it probably should have been in the front there, but Batwoman. So this is, The Many Arms of Death. So I haven't read this one yet. So this is the Batwoman comic. Like I said, I adore Batwoman. Cannot wait to watch the TV show. Badass, amazing, queer, female superhero icon. Love it. Then this one over here. So I'm going to move on to some kind of more non-fiction that I've read. And this is Girls Will Be Girls by Emma O'Toole. And this is kind of part memoir, part sort of essay and musings as well on what kind of gender identity means, feminism identity means. What does it mean to be a girl? Kind of that idea of performing to our gender. If we wear a skirt, does that make us girls? Again, Emma is queer, so that and lends another slant to it. And I just really enjoyed her. She's very funny. This is, again, very easily digestible and read. And just that idea, those constant questions around gender identity, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be female. Really fascinating, really fun read as well. And her life is just really funny at times. So I really recommend that. It's not going to depress you. Then another book is Tracey Emin, Strangeland. Now, I adore Tracey Emin, and I think for me, Tracey Emin is a feminist icon in the art world because she kind of puts two fingers up to the establishment and says, I'm going to do the kind of art that I want to do. And again, she very much reclaims feminine sexuality, which I love. And obviously she's been criticized for, but I love the fact that she's very empowering and she really reclaims that. And this is her autobiography. This one, again, a trigger warnings for abuse and rape in this, but it is fascinating. It's beautifully written, really interesting. It is like stepping into Tracey's mind, I can imagine, and I find her a really strong, inspirational woman to read about. Speaking of strong, inspirational women, one of my all-time favorite athletes is Ronda Rousey. So this is her autobiography, My Fight, Your Fight. And Ronda Rousey, for those of you that don't know, she was a judo champion. She then moved into mixed martial arts and UFC fighting, so Ultimate Fighting Champion. And she was the first woman that was signed to Ultimate Fighting Champion. Before, again, it was seen as very much a male-dominated sport, so MMA, men do that, women don't. And she broke the mold. She is phenomenal. Again, this book is tabbed up. You can see to the hilt. I'm going to read it again. There is so much inspiration in terms of her fight, her desire to just be the best, to not take on what other people were telling her, but do what she wanted to do. And I love that. And I think, again, that idea of whether you're male, female, it doesn't matter. Just not taking what other people tell you should be, other people tell you should do, and being your own person and deciding for yourself, and fighting through that and just being strong and determined. And I love it. I love this book. I hugely recommend. Then another very brave woman, as by the title of the book, is Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan, instrumental in the Me Too movement, instrumental in bringing down Harvey Weinstein, which, hugely applaud her for, and just really opening the lid on the discrimination and the sexual abuse in Hollywood. And this is her story, just gut-wrenching at times as well. Again, trigger warning, sexual abuse, sexual assault, but it's hugely fascinating, really interesting to see how she's kind of persevered through her life and gone through some really hard times to come out fighting on the other end. Hugely recommend this autobiography. And then the last set of books is just a sort of a random kind of set of, I guess, feminist inspired, strong women inspired. So the first one is Riot Girls. So this is Revolution Girl Style Now. And I've mentioned before, and I'm going to do another whole video on Riot Girl, the fact that I love Riot Girl, but this was kind of, I guess, the feminist movement in the 1990s, centered around music, and before, when you wanted to go to rock concerts and rock shows and kind of grunge concerts, at the time was very male, very masculine dominated, and then these women kind of came to the fore that said, you know what, we can play this music, we love this music, and we want to be part of the scene. And it's kind of about Kathleen Hanna, who is instrumental in the Riot Girl movement, was on stage one day and she said, girls to the front, because whenever you go to these concerts, you've got mosh pits and girls were being, thrown to the ground and abused in a lot of cases, and she would make all the girls kind of come to the front to almost keep them safe and have a safe space for them. And I love that, and I love the whole Riot Girl movement, and this is fascinating. This just basically, if you can see there, it's got pictures and drawings and excerpts. This is a wonderful book. I've got loads of books on Riot Girl, but I thought I'd just feature one of them. Really, really inspirational and a great insight into the 90s, if either you were there or you weren't, and you want to know about it. Then another book that I'm going through at the moment is this one. So this is Women Artists You Should Know. Now, I've got a few. I love art. I've got things on contemporary art and modern art. But this one I love because it just features female artists, and I think female artists, sometimes the narrative of art can be quite forgotten, and you've got a few that are really famous and then others that we don't know about. So I love the fact that there is a book just focusing on 50 amazing female artists. And then the last two books, I'm gonna shut up now, that I'm talking about is these two. These are Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls 1 and 2. I love these books. So these are great. So all of the others that I've mentioned there were a couple of YA books in there, but they're mainly for adults. Whereas this, you can give to young girls, and I think they're beautiful. So for each one, you have a gorgeous drawing, painting, picture of the person, and then you've got a description of who they are and what they've done. And these are all and it's so diverse. It is just, so you can see that was Alec Veck, who is a model. You've got Florence Nightingale. You've got people, Jacquetta de la Haye, who I really love. She was a pirate. You've got just a cross section. There's Joan Jett, Maria Montessori, really just Marie Curie, just such a huge wide spectrum of women from different ages, from different cultures, from different classes, from different races, and just the spectacular things that they did. And again, really easily digestible. I adore it as an adult. I think it would make a wonderful gift, both of these books, for young girls to read and just really appreciate kind of their female counterparts and what they did and how they contributed to the world, because quite often they're not talked about. So that's it. So that's my video. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you have any recommendations based on what I was talking about, and you know, what are you doing for International Women's Day and you know, Women History Month, which marches as well. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye bye.